Have you heard the saying, the issues are in the tissues? And if so, do you know what that means? It's the concept that the things that happen to us physically and also emotionally actually can become lodged in the tissues of our body, sometimes just causing chronic pain, causing dis-ease. And of course, I'm not discounting that pain does happen because of injuries and because of illness, but there's an emotional component that goes along with physical ailments. And we're talking about Taurus this month, and Taurus is so related to the body. So if you think about Aries being the infant that comes into the world, enters into the birth canal, and immediately opens its mouth and begins to scream and says, I have needs that need to be met, and this is how I'm going to get them met. Or I feel powerful about something, I feel passionate about something, and damn it, people are going to listen to me. Well, Taurus is when we as babies start to discover our own body. You've seen babies reaching out and noticing like they have these limbs that they can control, and they have this tongue that they're using. And so with Taurus comes along this discovery of our physical body. We are in our physical body all the time. We're navigating around, but it can take sometimes several years, like even well into our 50s and 60s, before we begin to really understand the connection to the body and how much wisdom the body holds on to. We're going to talk about that today. I'm Natha Perkins of Astrology, and this is Astrology for Awakening. I am releasing this on both my podcast, Star Narratives, and on YouTube. These are edited versions of podcast episodes that I released in season 5 on Star Narratives, but I'm editing them because I want this to be a total body of work so that you as an astrology student, or just as a person that's going through a spiritual awakening, someone that's interested in knowing themselves, can come and find all of these episodes in one place and listen as you see fit. You might decide to binge them. You might decide to go back whenever you're having an issue in your life that you want to understand on a deeper level, because that's how I teach. I am not just teaching you astrology. I'm teaching you spiritual awakening, how to see yourself and how to know yourself, how to live a life of deep examination so that you can heal, you can find more well-being. You aren't always so connected to your pain, your suffering, your trauma, your conditioning. So we are talking about Taurus, and we are going into the physical body. And as you are listening to this, and for the next week, when this information is fresh in your mind, do some practice around your body. I wanted to share a story of some body work that I was getting done. And the practitioner was going into my jaw, and my jaw is a place that's always pretty tight. I grind my teeth at night. I am prone to headaches. And as she was working on my jaw, I was doing a physical practice where I was tuning in to my body on such a deep level. I wanted to understand, what does my body have to say? What is it trying to communicate with me? What is it sharing? And as my therapist went into my jaw, she hit a tender spot. And I said, why is this tender? And my body immediately gave me a memory. And it was of being in 6th grade in PE class and getting kicked in the face with a kickball. And just that memory alone helped me to understand, oh, there's some trauma here. And it isn't even a big piece of trauma. It doesn't have to do with something that went on for a long time. It's not something that really hit me in a difficult, hard level. It didn't knock my confidence. Like, it was an accident, and it was fast. And yet it was such a prime example of the issues in the tissues thing, this accident, this unexpected ball that came flying out of the air, smacked me in the face. And if you remember playing kickball, they're those thin rubber balls. So it was like a slap in the face, and I'm sure it stung. But all of these years, I'm experiencing headaches, and I'm experiencing a tightness in my jaw. And that is one of the reasons why. So it was really important for me, as I discovered through my process, to go back into 6th grade me. And I really thought about who I was and what was going on in that time of my life. And as you know, we make the transition between elementary school and middle school, and it's a huge transition. Not only do we have to go be with the big kids, we're no longer cute little students that are like doing arts and crafts during the day. We're actually in a school with kids that are going through adolescence, and we begin to go through adolescence. And it's a very uncomfortable time. I don't think anybody has a fun time in middle school. And so I started thinking, like, what was that period of my life like? And it was hard, and I was trying to find myself. And I'm sure getting kicked in the face with a kickball was embarrassing and confronting, and I didn't like it. I didn't want all of the attention of everybody. And so that experience really opened up for me some pivotal pieces about myself and about who I was as I was transitioning between being a child and being a woman. So one of the pieces of homework that you can do if you want to is to begin looking at your aches and pains. And I'm going to walk you through this as we progress into this episode. But begin looking at the tender places in your body, at the things that have given you maybe chronic pain or that flare up, or just little tender spots that you find like, ooh, why do I always have a knot in my neck here? Or why do I always get a cramp in my stomach in the same place? Giving your attention to those things, asking your body to show you the memories of how this place originally got impacted. Why does the cramp or the pain or the tightness originate here? And I'm telling you, there's so much information that your body has for you. So let's get into the episode. Before we do that, if you like my style and you want to book a private reading with me, you can do that at electraastrology.com. And if you want to become a student, do mentorship with me, if you want to check out a zodiac journal, or you want my free ebook, which is called Astrology is a Superpower, you can find all of that at electraastrology.com. All right, let's jump in. This week, we're going to dive into Taurus and the relationship to the physical body, to physical pleasure, and to being able to read the signs that the body sends. Most of us miss out on so much information because we are busy in the mind. We're overthinking, and we're up in that head instead of down in that body. So some of this is just a matter of retraining yourselves. When we move into Gemini season, which will be soon, we're going to really dive into that busy, busy mind. The mind is an amazing thing as well, but it can take us out of so much of the beauty and the abundance that is here and ready for us. And that is another reason why I love talking about Taurus, because it is the money, all the goodies. So this week we are going to be talking about Taurus and the connection to the body, to self-care, pleasure, all of those things. And Taurus is the sign that is connected to the land and to the earth that we live on. Of course, Virgo and Capricorn are also earth signs, but they come from a different approach. With Taurus, this is the most simplistic connection to the land, to being able to tap in, to really feel your own personal physical connection to being a body that lives on this planet, that navigates through the land of your life every single day. So I like to talk about Taurus as being connected to the senses, as a way to dive in and understand your own body, your own embodiment, your ability to be present, your connection to the messages that your body has to share with you, the wisdom that your body holds from being on this journey with you. Talking about all of that and how to understand all of that, starting with sensuality. So let's start off with one of my favorite Taurus meditations. If you have been in any of my circles, occasionally in my readings, you have probably learned about this, but this is a good one. So just close your eyes for a moment and begin to breathe. And just see what it feels like to breathe into your body. Perhaps this is the first time all day that you have given any thought to your breath. And the breath has a wonderful way of relaxing the nervous system. There's something very pleasurable about just taking deep breaths and feeling the way that everything settles. This also gives your mind something to do as you're concentrating on the breath, releasing the thoughts, releasing the busyness, and just coming into the present moment, into the body. So, Taurus being a sign of sensuality, and we think of sensuality as, being beautiful and two lovers being together and dripping honey from a spoon onto the tongue, all of these things. Yes, that is sensuality also, but sensuality relates to tuning into our senses. So take a moment as you are breathing to notice what you smell. What are the smells in the room that you're in or in the car? Are there layers of smells? What do you smell that you had not noticed before? And listen. What are the sounds that you hear in this space that you inhabit? There are loud sounds, and there are very, very subtle sounds. Try to see if you can sense all of them. And remember to keep breathing through this exercise. Now take a minute to feel what it feels like to be sitting in your clothing. Where does your clothing pinch you or poke you? Is there anything in your clothing that is itchy or uncomfortable? Or does it feel nice against your skin? And what is the temperature of the air against the skin that is exposed? And can you feel different versions of air? Slight breezes, varying temperatures. Maybe it's warmer up near your head and colder down by your feet. And when you look around, what do you see? What do you see that you had not noticed before? And try to take a few minutes to just be in this state, breathing, noticing, feeling, listening, smelling. This is a fast exercise that you can do at any point in the day to bring you into your senses, into the simple pleasures of just being in the here and the now in this body. This is also a great walking meditation. I know a lot of you, and myself included, have a really hard time sitting for meditation, but you can always walk for meditation and do this while you're walking. Simply be very present with what's happening by sensing, smelling, looking, listening. So we know that one of the things that Taurus is concerned with and would like more of is pleasure. We also know that sometimes pleasure can be on the back burner. It can feel like it is not attainable, or like we need to do other things before we can focus on pleasure. If we can take moments in our day to experience the pleasure that we have available to us by doing simple things with our body, that can be a pleasure practice. We think of self-care a lot as like, I have to go get a massage and I have to go get expensive lotions and potions and get my nails done. And those things are self-care. Self-care can also be walking in nature. It can be taking baths, and it can be nourishing yourself with food. But self-care doesn't necessarily have to be something that you spend a great deal of energy or time or money to do. It isn't something that you always have to schedule in around the edges of your regular life. There are plenty of ways to sense into the pleasure of the body. And one of my favorite ways to do that is by paying attention to my mouth, my voice. Taurus is related to the throat. And a lot of people that have a hard time experiencing Taurus can really tap into their own Taurus energy by doing things like singing or just speaking, paying attention to the way that you speak, which brings me to the mouth. So take a minute and just notice your mouth and how you're holding your mouth. Most of us are holding our mouth and our jaws pretty tightly. There can be a lot of contraction. You might grind your teeth. You might have a very sore jaw. And as a matter of fact, just take your fingers and rub the sides of your jaw just to see, are there any pressure points that are sore or tender? Does it feel good to get into those muscles and rub your jaw? And again, notice what you're doing with your mouth. How far do you open your mouth when you speak? You might notice that there are things that you say where you hardly open your mouth at all. You don't articulate your words. You don't enunciate with your lips, with your tongue. And why is that? We lose touch with our mouths and with our voices very easily for many different reasons. And most of us find that our mouths are usually set in autopilot. But I did some work with a teacher who taught voice. And one of the things that I was so blown away with in this practice, working with her, was how freeing and liberating it felt to actually pay attention to my mouth and what I did with it and how I spoke with it and the amount of tension that I naturally held in my mouth, in my jaw, and how amazing it felt to articulate and give it conscious thought so that I wasn't playing so small. I wasn't holding myself in. And many of us have this relationship with pleasure where we hold ourselves back from it for some reason. We feel like it's okay to do Taurus things like make money and stockpile goods or buy beautiful things, but it's not okay to simply indulge in being in the body, enjoying the body, enjoying what the body has to offer. Beginning with the mouth, we have tenuous relationships with our bodies. And so just diving straight into you should love your body. You should enjoy your body can be quite a leap. But an easy place to start is with the mouth. And so I encourage you this week, as you move through your week, to think about your mouth. Notice what it's doing. Notice how it feels. You might even play around with massaging your face, finding places where self-massage feels good. You're putting your lotion on or your oils on your face, or even when you are washing your face. Notice how much tension you're holding in your face and in your head and in your neck. Because working with this Taurus archetype, it doesn't matter what kind of abundance you're trying to call forth. Most of us, again, we're trying to call forth more money or we're trying to feel loved. But there's an important part about Taurus where we're trying to work with self-love. It's hard to really settle into loving ourselves when we are so busy, sort of unconsciously running around doing all of these things that we were taught to do. So I've been talking about values and what is valuable to you now that maybe wasn't valuable last year or 5 years ago, and the things that are no longer valuable that are being replaced by things that actually make you feel satiated. And I think that this concept of settling into our bodies, becoming more present, practicing things like deep breaths and tuning into the way that things feel, the wind blowing through your hair, the smell of the flowers wafting through that wind, that these are ways of partnering with your body, of being kind, giving your body attention. The sun being where we're trying to get reflection from other people. We want people to see us and know us and understand us.
But truly, it has to start from within. And this idea of becoming conscious of the places in our bodies where we naturally hold tension, where we are tight and contracted. And in the case of the mouth, we don't open our mouth to speak. We aren't taking deep, nourishing breaths. When we can dip into these little practices, it can go a long way in helping us to know ourselves, helping us to see ourselves, and most importantly, helping us to read the messages from our bodies. I think as we're moving through this transformational period and we've been doing all of this Venus work, that of course it's easy to focus on financial matters and the way that we're dealing with the land and the food supply and all of these things. These are Uranus and Taurus questions. These are Jupiter and Taurus questions, like what are we going to do? How are we going to clean up the land? How are we going to generate enough money to live on? Like these are questions, but truly they're not even the most important questions, because the most important thing, as we're all trying to do our healing work and we're all trying to understand what direction it is that we want to go, we want to cultivate this sweet and tender and nourishing relationship with our bodies. And if we're too busy focusing on all of those big questions, those world questions, what everybody's wringing their hands trying to figure out the answer to, we do lose that sweet connection with the self. We don't see ourselves. We don't really feel enough pleasure in our physical bodies. And I think that leads to a sense of dullness and a sense of flatness. And it probably even brings up some of those Taurus shadows that I was talking about, where we feel tired and we just want to sit in front of the TV and veg out, or we feel like there's never enough. But starting with these little tiny pleasure practices of noticing, why am I holding my jaw so tightly? Why have I been taking such short and shallow breaths? Why have I missed that my body has been telling me it needs to use the restroom for 3 hours? This is a week that I encourage you to really dive into your body, tuning into everything that's going on. It's easy to ignore, isn't it? I mean, how many times have you been working away, realizing that you have a massive headache, or you've been limping along, trying to ignore the pain in your hip? And there's something about slowing down, which is one of the Taurus pieces. Slowing down, taking your time, tuning in to what needs to happen in this moment in order to progress with success. And next week, we are going to talk about Taurus and the garden, and this analogy of what we're trying to grow and the kind of attention that we are giving to our garden. What kind of steward are we to our garden? And so this is a good place to start with this question of, what kind of steward are you to your body? You can diet all day, you can exercise all day, but if you aren't in tune with what your body is trying to say to you about everything that you're doing with it, then what's the point? It's like there's this major communication breakdown, which, by the way, is very similar to what we see externally in our governing bodies. We see the problems. We see that things are progressing in ways that are harmful and hurtful, and very few people in power care. They're too busy trying to meet their own agenda and focus on their own values, which are very distorted. So don't act like that external government. Don't be focusing on to-do lists and values that are distorted. Tuning in, getting a sense of what is here right now, what needs to happen right now. You're always going to have dynamic and ever-shifting answers. Sometimes your body is going to tell you it needs to sleep. Sometimes it's going to tell you that it needs physical touch. Sometimes it's going to tell you that it needs to run and jump with joy. And we want to be tuning in instead of just going in autopilot, where we end up bored and dissatisfied and overindulgent. All right, thanks for joining me, you guys. I hope that you learned something, and I will see you all soon.